District to do some nice walks and sort of get away from COVID as much as I could. So I put together a new Peak District talk, which has some of my older photos, but it also has some of the photos I've taken on my walks from, I don't know, March through to the last couple of weeks. So this is the intro page, and we'll set off. One second, back again. Okay, one of the nice things in the Peak District, apart from the great scenery, is there's some really interesting buildings as well. And this is an old Victorian pump house, which was pumping water around for the various farms, etc. And that's in something called the Coombs Valley, which you can see from the Tishton Trail. And it's just really nice design. And of course, now the sheep take advantage of it. Some of you who've walked in the Roaches might have gone down to this famous gorge near Gradbach, which is called the Woods Church. And quite often when you go there, it's very dark and dingy. So I was quite lucky that day that the light was coming down through the narrow gorge and showing its detail. I'm sure you've all been around Chichester's Reservoir at some point, and this is a view of that from the Roaches. This is a shot of something called Mininglow, which is the trees on the horizon, and it goes back to a Saxon burial ground, and it's quite got quite a few interesting graves there apparently. But in mid picture, you can see that that's the Tittington Trail, and there's a sort of fantastic embankment that was built for the railway there. Near the highest village in the Peaks, Clash, is a farm, and we came across these very inquisitive emu, and this one really gave me the eye. I didn't want to get too close to him. This is a very often photographed spot in the Peaks, and this is called Freeshire's Head, and it's important, if you're lucky, to get some nice light on the picture, and you can make quite artistic images if you want to, which is what I tend to do sometimes with these shots. And there are a few remaining Saxon strip fields in the Peak District, and this set is at Chelmorton, and apparently going back to sort of Saxon times, everyone was given a thin strip of land, and this is how they were marked out, and that was what you had to grow all your food and survive with. I'm not sure that people would do that these days, but it's nice to see that they've kept all those fantastic stone walls intact. I don't know if you all remember the drought of 2018. But this is Derwent Reservoir, where the water was incredibly low, and you can actually see a couple of people sitting down there. And these stands that you can see were the old railway. When they built the dam and the dam wall, they had a railway to bring all the stone and supplies, etc. And those were the supports they left in place when they flooded the dam. And I was actually able to walk along the bottom. You can see normally the water is roughly where my mouse is showing, but that particular year it was incredibly low. And that's when I had a walk with a friend of mine, and that's one of the sort of sides of the dam where they, again, with Victorian type of architecture, built some sort of castle turrets to make it look more impressive. I did come across a couple of Greater Crested Grebes on Trenterbank Reservoir, which is near the Macclesfield Forest. And it was, I think, their second clutch of eggs. And what happens apparently is that they both will sit on the eggs. So at this point, one, as mum or dad, has come off the eggs and is going off fishing, while the one is returning to sit on the eggs again. I didn't hear how they survived, but there was 4 of them obviously then. Okay, this is a shot from the other side of the valley of Thor's Cave, famous cave there near Wetton. And I'd seen a photograph of somebody had taken Thor's Cave from way up the side of the hill, so I worked out where it was, and took a little bit of working out, but got a shot where you've got a nice view, but Thor's Cave is sitting there on the top left there. This is something called Robin's Hood Stride, or the Mock Beggar's Mansion. So that is an outcrop that's been there obviously for a long time, and apparently just nearby was the Roman road, or the Derbyshire Portway, sometimes called the Chariots Way, which passed close to this spot. So when you see quite a few of these things, there's a lot of history associated with them. Okay, this is just looking across the fantastic landscapes of the peaks with all the fields, and you've got quite a few straight lines on these fields, but quite often they're very higgledy-piggledy. And this is a little place called Peak Forest, so it's an apt name for a town in the Peak District. This is a shot of Crome Hill near Earl Sterndale, which was formed when our country was in the southern seas and was submerged. That was formed by as the edge of a reef. And another nice shot of both Crome and Park House, which was taken early one morning, but not at the crack of dawn, which has some nice shadows across the fields, and you've got that nice field that runs around and gives you a centre focus point of the trees here. And here's another set of stone walls. You can't really go far in the Peak District without seeing some of the fantastic fields surrounded by the stone walls. And again, I guess these are more of the stripped fields that you would have seen. And like elsewhere, you know, most of them are kept in good condition, but it's quite difficult to get all the walls kept as well as they are. Okay, we've come down to Monsall now on the viaduct now by Monsall Head. Well, I've gone down into the field below Monsall Head and just below the Monsall Trail to get a shot of the super viaduct that's there, together with some reflections of the Erie trees. I go to the Roaches sometimes, but on this occasion there was quite a few climbers going up, so it was nice to get a shot of their activity. On another day, lots of school kids were there doing more simple rock climbing, so that was nice to see as well. And this is just one of the many dales that I've come across on my walks, and there's quite often an old stone building which is maybe for the sheep or whatever, And that always makes an interesting point, a focal point, when you're doing those sorts of images. On a walk from Hollins Clough, there are a couple of packhorse bridges, and these have been around for quite a long time. Most of them were built between 1650 and 1750, so they're really, really old. But it's just amazing how they're still standing and still look pretty solid. On one of the walks, I went near to something called Narrowdale Farm, and just as I was coming down the track to the farm, there's this old, I think it's called a Landis Land Rover from the 50s, but I don't think anyone's going to drive that one away again. But that's a disused farm. So it's called Narrowdale Farm, and it is actually a 19th century Grade II listed building. It's been empty since 1970, but recently a newspaper report said that someone was going to buy it. I think they've got a job on their hands to be able to live in it again. Just down from where that farm is, it's always nice to put a few people in for images, and so that's just a couple hand in hand walking down the rather nice path that we got there, which goes into Wolfscote Dale. And as you walk into Wolfscote Dale, you've got this fantastic Higator rock, which, if you get it with nice light, is a very impressive bit of limestone. Towards the bottom end of Wolfscote Dale, you've got some more nice sort of towers of limestone, and then a nice stream going through the picture. When you get to Milldale, it's a very busy place. Because it's at the end of Dovedale, you do get dozens and dozens of people there, whereas I see very few people on most of my walks. The Dovedale area is a bit like Blackpool Promenade. But this is another packhorse bridge, which you don't see many horses on these days, but it's called the Biotur Bridge. One of my routes into the Peak District takes me on the far side of the Roaches, on the back side, if you like. And there's a viewpoint that you can get. So I stopped when the weather was on my side for photography one day, and got the cows grazing and a nice shot of the Roaches. Another nice place is from Yulegreave, something called the Bradford Dale, and though it was a reasonable sized river, they blocked off lots and lots of areas to make mill ponds, and there would have been a mill building. So as we walked along that, there was probably 6 or 7 little ponds that had been dammed to make mill ponds to use the power of the water. What is really nice when you're doing some of these longer walks is the variety of landscape that you go through. So sometimes you're in open moorland, and sometimes you're in sort of dark gorges. And on this occasion, I was with 2 of my friends, and I got a shot coming out of the darkness, and they're sort of standing or walking away in the as the sun's coming through the trees. It's surprising, or maybe it's not, that trees tend to grow with the protection of some stone or buildings or whatever. And quite often now you see old ruined buildings where there's a tree growing out of it. And this is one such building and tree, and I just managed to get a position to get a shot of the whole thing. Some of the dales aren't that descriptive, or maybe they are. One's called Longdale, and this is Longdale. And this is an ancient water source. And so you've got an old animal drinking tray there, which is quite attractive. I've got a friend in the camera club who loves horses, so usually if I see a horse on my walks, I'll take a shot of it and send it to her. But this horse has got some sort of feeding restrictor. He was obviously a little bit unsure of me with the dirty look he's giving me, but I don't know whether he was eating too much, or whether the grass wasn't the right sort for him, or what it was. But I'd not seen one of those before on a horse. This is a shot walking back to Yulegreave, having done the Bradford Dale and the Longdale, and so Yulegreave and the church are in the distance. There's the church and there's a little village, and then there's this man-made reservoir by the farm. We came back into Bradford Dale at the end of this walk, and the path goes up quite steeply to the left there, back to the village. But this is an idea of the bit of the stream or the river that's actually still free flowing, wasn't blocked off by the mill ponds. I did venture down Dovedale this year, the first time for a long time, and it did get very busy in the afternoon, but luckily during the morning it wasn't too bad. So there's one of the towering limestone turrets that you see on that walk. And this is a dew pond. I don't know if you've spotted any of these on your walks in the Peak District, any of you, but it was created by local farmers where the water was scarce. So if there wasn't any wells or running water, they produce these shallow sort of pond type things for the cows to drink from. And here you can see that whilst they're not drinking, they're staying quite close to the water, which is a little bit low on this shot. Back into Monsaldale this year, I've been quite lucky with getting the sun coming at the right time, because it just brings life to the photograph. And this is the weir, not far from the viaducts we saw in the earlier picture, and there's a reasonable amount of water coming through the over the weir and down the river. And that's a panoramic shot of Monsaldale. So you can see the viaduct there, and that's the trail, and I'd taken my photograph down to the left there. But to give an idea of the nice view you get from standing at the top of Monsaldale, that's it. Monsaldale is quite a popular track. I wanted to get a shot without people, so I had to wait a few minutes before I got an opportunity, and just used one of the old bridges that goes across it to frame it, to give it a bit more impact. And I'm still trying to find, so at the end, if anybody knows what this building in Ashton in the Water is called, it's just by the Packhorse Bridge that they've got just through there. But I wanted to get a bit more history about it, and I haven't yet found out what it's called, so I'm asking for help on that one. This was a walk I was doing, and I just spotted this limestone peak with a cave in it, which you can't see from the trail below. So I was just trying to get a little bit of sun on it to give an idea how it looked. Okay. Right. When I was in walking down from Waterhouses, you can go down to Caldon Low, and there's a couple of huge quarries down there, and the footpath does go just quite close to the edge. So I thought I'd just get one or two shots of blot on the landscape, where may not be the sort of Peak District that we want to see, but I guess that you have to have some industry, and they've got to take advantage of the limestone for their cement. And that's how one of the quarries was that we took from the air. You can just see how extensive the workings are, and they have been going on for a long time, but of course these days they can take so much more out at any given time. And that's a shot of the works that I took. And that's just a field with the old rolled hay in the fields. I like the angle, the nice curve on the field, sort of bulging out to give that effect. There is a in a second. This is a place called Waterfall, and that's got one of the old pumps. I remember, I think my grandparents in Norton Bridge had something like that in the garden for their water. But it's really a very pretty old village that we walked through. And that's the church of St. James and St. Bartholomew in Waterfall, which is a small ancient structure with a tower and 3 bells. And the parish register dates back to 1602. So you really are stepping back in history when you walk through some of these churchyards. A more recent walk took me over something called the Weaver Hills, which I hadn't come across before, but there's a really nice sky, and I wanted to get an advantage for that. So found this animal feeding. It's a more modern one. These are produced now in concrete, so they're not quite as dramatic as the old natural stone ones, but even so, it makes a nice picture. And on the second walk, on a different part of the Caldon Low quarry, this is another more close-up shot of one of the big dumper trucks and the workings. I mean, they do look tidy, even though they're an eyesore. They do work in quite an organised way with these quarries. And this is another shot with Crome Hill and Park House up here on the right from Hollings Clough. And again, you've seen these really nice valleys that were formed by nature a long time ago. Another set of nice limestone cliffs at Longdale. And this climber on the roaches had fallen off, but luckily he was roped, so he's just hanging there getting his breath back before he has another go. A few years ago I went to Cottondale near Oakermore, on a beautiful autumn day. It was in 2016, and the sun was shining and the colours were just amazing. I must go back again, but I can't quite repeat that that experience. I was walking back across Shining Tor to Milldale when this nice view caught my eye. Another day when the sun was giving me some nice light and the trees are just starting to turn. And back up at the top of Oakermore, this was the trees in their glory with the reds and the russets and the oranges. So really pretty. And again, when you've got the light coming through the trees, just the walk through the woods can look quite magical. This is a little bit more austere. It was taken in February, so it gives quite a harsh feel. It's somewhere called Allport Dale, which is not far from Derwentwater, and it's just a shot showing when there's not much vegetation, the countryside can look quite bare. Not far from that, on the way back on the walk, there's this old tree was being lit up by the afternoon sun and a little bit of rain. Maybe it was coming in from the west there. About 6 o'clock in the evening, that's all we were leaving Derwentwater. The sun was down because we're still in February, but this lovely reflection of the bridge over the Ladybower Reservoir, and that was a nice shot that I like. And just going back to Minninglow, this is one of the graves, the Saxon burial grave. I mean, it doesn't look a huge amount now, but I don't suppose you would put all those big rocks there together if it wasn't to have something significant to show. Just up from Park House and Crome, there's something called Hitter Hill, and that's a shot taken back towards the other mountain or the other hills from the top of Hitter Hill. During 2018, when it was very dry, there was a big fire on the Roaches, and it did burn quite a lot of the heather and also some of the trees. And this was 12 months later. I went back, and it just shows that some of it hadn't recovered yet. It's going to take some time to get back to a natural look. So hopefully nobody will be having barbecues on the Roaches again. This is another shot of the Tittington Trail, and it shows again the big earthworks that was done to keep the railway level, and it was operated by the Royal and North Western Railway from 1899 from Buxton to Ashbourne, and it was bought by the Peak District National Park in 1971 and turned into a traffic-free trail for cyclists and walkers. And from that trail you can see a house for sale if you wanted to have that as your Peak District holiday cottage. It needs a little bit of attention though. There's an area called the Lumsdale Valley, which is now part of the Arkwright archaeological sort of conservation, and they've got lots of waterfalls and all sorts of things, old buildings, and it's very atmospheric. And they use water obviously for powering the various mills. It was still used as a bone crushing factory up until the 1920s, apparently. Right, so that's Lumsdale. This is back on the Tiston Trail with an old signal box, a memory of the original line. So I don't think that the walkers and cyclists will recognise any of the signals these days. Okay. We mentioned Peak Forest earlier, and that was a shot of the church there. I was just walking past it and the sun was just coming down on the church itself, and so I was trying to get a spot to give an arty sort of shot. And up from Peak Forest, Sweet Knot Farm. It's a very pretty farm with some nice red flowers in the stone wall. And here's a slim cow. I don't usually take shots of cows, but I quite like the way I got him in the middle of the sort of hill behind him in a nice bright sky. Okay, this is another quarry that's now disused up from Peak Forest, and that's how it looks today. And that's how it used to look in 1963, a real hive of activity. So they must have exhausted all of the limestone out of that one. And that's down in the base of the quarry. And we had our lunch there, and all these sheep just didn't come down to us, but they were very interested in what we were having for lunch, I think, and just looked at us from the horizon there. And that was the angle of the signpost as we went down the hill from the quarry a bit later on. The Three Horseshoes pub on the Leek Road hosts weddings, and I did do one of those and discovered that from the garden at the back of the pub there, you do get a pretty good view of the Roaches. So this was on quite a dark, gloomy day, but it made quite a satisfying image. And near to a place called Sheldon, there's the Magpie Mines, which is one of the best preserved mines in the Peak District. So they've still got the winding head there. And on this particular day, there was some storms coming in. So I've just got, if you like, the weather front as it comes across. So after that, there was quite a heavy shower. And there it is, just on a tree, just looking the other way, really, from that same spot. And that's on another occasion, just getting the winding head when there's a bit of a spectacular sunset. Now we've moved to Kinder Scout, the walk that I did there. So this is walking up Kinder and the reservoir just below it. So there was some nice light and shade across the landscape in the corner of the reservoir. along the Kinder Edge, there's lots of opportunities for sort of landscapes where you've got the weathered rocks in the foreground, and then you've got, there's the reservoir again that we walked past earlier. And there's some more weathered rocks. And this is the famous Kinder Downfall, which is where the water, if the wind is the right direction and is strong enough, the water just flows back. And you can just see on the day I was there, there's a bit of water there being blown back up towards the top of the Kinder Downfall. And for the scale of it, you can just see 3 people on the top. So it's quite a massive area, but it's probably best when you've got ice flows and what have you. And I haven't gone in the winter yet, but I'd like to do that. And there's some more strange weathered, animal-like sort of shots you can get up there. And that's along the summit. So it's quite a strange area for weathered rocks. And that was a shot I put into a competition that did well for me, for walrus. Sometimes just a very simple shot, just having some sunshine on the hill, but you've got some dark, moody clouds above it, just gives it a little bit of drama. And this is back into Wolfscope Dale on another walk, where we've got some nice weir and giving some wild water and a nice view through the trees as well. And that's a couple of stones sticking out the water at Milldale. Not quite sure what was going on there, but I guess it was something to do with water power. And that's just a nice tree on the angle with the sunlight on it. This was just walking back into Alston Field, and just intrigued how pretty this, obviously the people who own this house would make it look. So I thought it would make a nice shot for the talk. Now was quite a dull day, but that's probably more typical of the sort of days that we remember in the Peak District, where there's not much sun, and the threat of rain is just always there. And just looking at some of the old, so here we haven't got quite as good a stone wall, it's starting to fall down, and the barn is obviously seen better days. And instead of the sheep, we've got a few cattle in the field. There's my friend Ian, who walks with me sometimes on a very wet, muddy day as he walks into the wilderness there. And going back to Derwentwater, a couple of years later, obviously, the water now is back up to its normal level, and it's one of the few reservoirs that has a natural overflow. So when it gets too full, it runs over, and you can probably see if you look closely that the stone wall is irregular, so it's slowed down in mini waterfalls all the way down, so it stops erosion and damage to the dam wall. And there's another shot from the top, and quite a moody day for that one. Another one on another day. It's quite atmospheric around there. I did a walk from Dane Bridge to Gradbach on quite a dull day, and it was one of the few days I didn't get many shots, but was determined to get one, and this was probably the best opportunity to get a shot on that walk. When you get to Gradbach, it's been done up quite a lot now. There's some tea rooms and a car park, and it just feels a little bit too clinical for me. I like it still to be a bit rural, and I think they've modernized it just a fraction too much for me. But anyway, it's still a pretty place. Sometimes when you're on the sort of barren hillside and you're looking for interesting shots to take, some trees and an old disused building that's falling apart is what you have to make do with. One second. And this is on Lady Bower. So this is a different way of the excess water. It's like a sort of wormhole that pushes the water down to the bottom of the dam through a pipe. So now I'm standing on Stanage Edge, looking across, and the storm clouds are whirring all around me. So it makes quite a dramatic image, and there's a famous cement factory here. So it's a different one than Caldon Low, but sometimes you get that whole area misty, and some shots in our camera cover are like that. And when I was just standing on the summit, this lady came along who's running along the whole ridge there, and I asked her just to pose for me so I could take a shot. And that's looking back along Stanage Edge with some nice clouds and a bit of sunlight trying to break through. And that's something called Surprise View. So you walk up this from this car park, and you've got a nice heather and this huge rock that's just sitting there. There's a guy standing in the rocks, looking out from Stanage Edge. And that's a closer look of the cement factory there. It's quite dramatic in the countryside if you like that sort of thing, but other people do think it's a blot on the landscape. There's some weathered stones on Stanage. And you've probably seen this is now quite an art form of people. I think the guy started it in Cornwall, but I just spotted those sitting on a rock along the Stanage Edge. And sometimes if you put your camera really low, in this case it was only about 12 inches above the water, and it was just a small little pond, pool really, but it makes it look much bigger than it is, and it gives it a more dramatic look. And you can't have a Peak District talk if you don't show some millstones. And Stanage Edge has lots of them still. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, about 7 just in that picture. It's probably got more than anybody else. But apparently they did make something called grindstones, which are a finer texture than millstones. And the small village of Hathersage, which is below Stanage, in the Dark Peak, had 5 such mills in the 18th century, using grindstones to sharpen metals. So it was quite an industry. And there's some more abandoned ones. And then some heather. And these two ladies climbed up the edge of from the bottom, so they just got to the top of their climb. And she's halfway up a climb, and she's asking her partner where the next handhold is. And that